And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan reading here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully with a slight little bit more improvements to our setup. It means that things should be better once again, because this train is rolling. Now, I know probably in the future I sort of want to try and maybe muddle around with things again, but I think for now, I like the size of the actual screen so you guys can see the text better. I managed to actually get an actual poster, and this is something that I actually did a number of years ago that I just decided to include for these. The flip boards are going to be above us, and I think this is actually kind of a bit more suited. So I hope you guys enjoy. So here we are at the Financhu crisis. I know there's probably been a lot of people who have openly wanted a bit more, who certainly wanted to see this. So if you are unfamiliar as to right now exactly what the Financhu crisis is, well, better prepare yourself, ladies and gentlemen, because this gets wild. And I'm probably not going to hold back on the details, because there are probably going to be some very, very honest things, as honest as I try to be for these. So let's get started. The Financhu crisis. Chris of April 2017, after his friends on Facebook refused to entertain the nonsense excuses for not having a job. I do not feel I would be mentally suited for an application required. Long waits to be contacted or not contacted. Am I hired yet? Under the man. Freaking job. Stop telling me to get a job. God. Also, Chris, truly bad intentions of spamming actual hate speech. Get a job. Chris considers getting a job a form of hate speech. And by the time we get to Chris's ideas or methodologies around censorship, you probably know why it's a good job that Chris didn't have anything to do with how hate speech is generated or what counts as hate speech. So, here we go. The Financhu crisis is a term coined by users from Kiwi farms to describe the steep decline in the Chandler's family financial management beginning in early 2016. Signs of the Chandlers' worsening finances were made apparent by the increasing amounts of begging videos and donation requests on YouTube and Facebook. In June 2017, Chris began to take his Patreon account more seriously and recommended drawing Sonichu comic pages. He has gotten several $100s per month for his efforts, and payments continued until the 2nd of August 2021. When his Patreon account was shut down. As a result, begging had temporarily subsided, because Chris was in jail by this time. And if you don't know what that story is, well, don't worry, we'll get to that one of these days. And, well, for those who don't know what the story is, well, best not look into it if you want to be surprised. And by the way, in case you're wondering here, this is sort of like one of the iconic staples of the begging saga, as it's called. It's Chris praying and begging for money, looking not particularly very interested, and surrounded in a room full of toys. It suggests almost immediately why you should never ever give money to Chris, because if you are a person who is actually considering seeing more of Sonichu, and you think that Chris is going to put all of his weight, and believe you me, there's a lot of weight to put into what he does, and you're expecting something out of this, I'm sorry to tell you that money will not be going into supporting Chris financially or aiding his abets to better his equipment for his work. The very last thing that's actually on Chris's mind in any given circumstance is making sure that his needs are prioritized over his wants. And for reasons we'll get into, it goes from bad to worse very, very quickly, and Chris has nobody else to blame except himself. But we'll get into that. In mid-2018, however, begging resumed, due to an alleged extortion plot by the Idea Guys, which involved threatening to destroy Chris's imaginary land of Quickville if he did not pay them. It is claimed that by the Guard Dogs group that Chris paid the Idea Guys around $6,000 in the form of gift cards and video game accessories. In short, $6,000 is roughly around the equivalent of this, as of this video, roughly about £5,700 possibly. So taking that as a whole, that's basically going 4 whole months without going to my job is what I'll be losing out on, essentially. And this is the sort of thing that doesn't seem to faze Chris pretty much. And as we'll get into, you may be possibly wondering whether or not it was a good thing that actually... No, it wasn't a good thing that Chris was extorted. Absolutely no way. But again, you've got to be thinking to yourself is that Chris was going to learn the hard way of what happens when you become emotionally invested in things that aren't real, and when you should have known much better by this point. Chris and Bob were left on the brink of foreclosure, and Chris repeatedly claimed to need assistance with buying enough food for his family. Chris stopped caring about the Financhu crisis by 2019 because of the dimensional merge and the generous backing from Ali Heiselberg and other financial enablers. Chris continues to beg, but only for conventions, toys, and video games. Chris now also believes that he has vast wealth in Dimension C197 to pay off his creditors. But creditors do not buy into fictional worlds and have managed to sue him for at least $11,606.15 as of the 23rd of February of 2022, which we've just covered that, the extent of Chris's debts, and the fact that, once again, when you spend your entire life refusing to get a job or to take any form of responsibility for any of your actions whatsoever, this is where it leads you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the road you go down, and here is the world that awaits you if you actually refuse to work. Period. But you still want to spoil yourself. Chris has access to Bob's online bank account and knows how to transfer money into his own account. During the incest saga fallout, he admitted to taking $750 from Bob's account to fund a hotel room for himself, and also splash out on frivolities and McDonald's, I imagine. Given that Bob is elderly on a fixed income and Chris is lazy on a fixed income, it is unsurprising that many followers worry that the death of Bob could lead to the so-called homeless saga, a wet dream for A-loggers in Weens, but devastating for both Chris and many of his followers. Owing to Chris's arrest on incest charges, his Patreon has been terminated, although financial enablers continue to send him money to his jail inmate account. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, I think the final total when it came to his Patreon is that it had gone nearly 800 days before when was the last time Chris actually uploaded images to meet his paid requirements for Sonichu, and even to this day, it's been over 5,400 days or something like that since Chris last applied for a job. The last time Chris actually applied for a job, to my knowledge, was the 27th of August 2009. So, we are coming up to 15 years was the last time Chris applied for a job. And kind of a bit like the same with Boogie 2198 or whatever it's called, there's absolutely no chance as of now that Chris is ever going to get one. As to whether or not people will still give him money, well, there will be the odd dumbass who literally thinks that just getting their place in Christery is worth, trying to look like an idiot. But there are also going to be plenty of people who are sort of concerned, I think is the way to put it, as to whether or not all Chris does is just going to be, he's just going to waste all of his stuff. But there you are. That's just my 2 cents on this. The background. To this day, the Chandlers' financial woes are caused by their own irresponsible behaviours. Chris learning absolutely nothing over the years, which I will come to when it comes to an entirely separate video, not necessarily retaining to things that happen on the quickie, but things that I just sort of picked up over this long period, and stuff that actually the quickie doesn't have, but I'll do it myself anyway. Okay, having to explain myself twice is, yeah. Has squandered any available money on children's toys, video games, fast food, and sex toys. Bob, on the other hand, has simply been ignoring long-term debts and letting them pile up to alarming amounts. Armed only with vain hopes that her man-baby would raise money for her bills. Chris has made some efforts to generate income for the household over the past few years, but that of actually finding a job, aka something that would solve all their problems. Like, how many of you guys have actually ever read the book A Confederacy of Dunces? You know how the main character of that story, Ignitus, actually did relent after not putting much up of a fight and actually got a job? Well, Ignitus put up much of a better fight than Chris does. Chris puts up such a resistance to saying, you know what, I'm not doing this, so that's the thing. Which included opening an Etsy shop in 2015. However, any profits gained would immediately go straight to toy purchases. An irresponsible move, for sure, that would turn out to be a recurring problem that keeps the Chandlers in the red. The shop would eventually shut down from Chris lazily not fulfilling Etsy orders, but he would still find some revenue from the occasional eBay sales to select merch from the horde. To further compound the issue, Chris has been instilled with a very real belief that fans are willing to drop large sums of money into his bank account for absolutely nothing. An expectation that has since been strengthened by the $1,000 donation by D-Stex in September 2015. And Chris still managed to fuck that up because, well, as we'll get into, Chris has morphed into the sort of person who legitimately expects something for nothing. This belief would take on the form of many begging videos that highlight the saga to this day. Now, some of them have been removed from, well, Chris's own channel, but thanks to the Quickie Archives channel, we'll be able to see quite a lot of them. And while not necessarily a thing we're going to be covering right now, I will showcase some of the best and some of the worst ones of the begging. Bob seems to have outstanding debts that dwarf Chris's financial handiwork. On September 2016, she faced lawsuits from Discovery and Capital One for failing to pay the large amounts of her credit card debt. According to the Virginia District Court records, it is worth noting that it takes a lot of ignored debt collector calls over a long period of time to get a simple credit card debt escalated to a lawsuit, suggesting that Bob may have been outright ignoring making any payments to her credit cards. Only time will tell if more creditor companies begin to sue Bob for her negligence. In August 2016, Chris revealed that the household is still under a mortgage of $115,000, introducing a far more worrying debt looming over the horizon, and one that absolutely nobody in their right mind would ever pay off, just so that Chris could still be Chris. That is, to exist. Both Chris and Bob continue to barely stay afloat with their lives, or lives to their thanks to their own tugboats. But their inactivity lifestyle and reckless spending habits will not last forever at this rate. Despite it all, Chris has not once attempted to find a job. In April 2017, with the household finances near the breaking point, one of Chris's IRL fans informed him of DARS, a service designed to help people with disabilities enter the workforce. Chris reacted with a temper tantrum, posting a multi-paragraph rant on not wanting to work. And if you want a little bit motivation, ladies and gentlemen, into thinking your day is, like, not going well, I know it's probably buried in here somewhere, but there's absolutely no doubt. Okay, here it is. It might be, I think there's a little bit more of it somewhere. No, I actually, it's probably not here somewhere. Yeah, okay, he has done, like, one in 2019 to my knowledge, claiming that Chris is somehow a goddess and therefore exempt from actual duties and work. So, there's also that. Chris's frivolous spending habits during the crises. Had to pay the mortgage and have no money for Transformers, please help. A recurring theme throughout the crises. Like any terminally irresponsible adult, Chris likes to keep his bedroom filled with toys while keeping his wallet empty. Below is a list of the known expenses Chris has made during the Financhu crisis, collected from online postings and eBay purchases throughout history. Some amounts are estimated, but all amounts are debilitating. During 2016, Chris was known to waste over $2,500 on toys, and in late 2017, Chris spent a considerable amount of money to attend BronyCon. A 3-day pass tickets were around $60, but money spent on travel, food, souvenirs, and lodging is around $2,000 to $3,000 by other attendees. Now, before we do get into the level of frivolities, I feel like it would be some use of our time if we actually showcase the sort of begging that Chris would actually start doing, because these things need to be studied. So, excuse me one moment. Okay, so here we are first. Now, one thing I'm going to actually start this video off is... Now, I could say this video really should begin when Chris first got his PlayStation 4, and he made, like, I mean, it cost, like, nearly $560 from Chris to buy it from Fingerhut, and some would say that's technically where it began, because it doesn't really highlight the begging. But one thing I want people to, like, take note of is the sort of thing that happens in this video in particular. Now, the rationale behind this is the idea that Chris was charging roughly $50 for birthday shoutouts, videos of this sort of description, and what we see in this is the sort of thing you get for your $50. And what you're about to witness, ladies and gentlemen, is that if this is what people were willing to pay $50 for, you can only imagine the amount, like, the more you pay Chris, the less he's going to do. Just as for this.
Hello, Martin, over there in Australia. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I've been so busy with life changes and everything. But anyway, your friend paid for me to wish you a happy birthday. I hope you had a very nice and pleasant birthday. You are a special guy, Martin. Special guy to this Martin. Everybody wish you a happy birthday. We hope you had a safe and pleasant one. Anyway, thank y'all for your support over there in Australia. Have a great...
Notice how half the video was just Chris rambling about nothing outside of the fact that, you know what, any other person would have just got on with it and, like, not rambled like a moron. And then it was whatever this was meant to be.
You are a special guy, Martin. Special guy to this Martin. Everybody wish you a happy birthday. We hope you had a safe and pleasant one.
That's like at most 11 seconds, and there is a little bit more about this, and I suppose well, again, couple together with also things like this.
It's Christine Chandler coming live. A safe one, too. Women's Day, so I want to wish everybody, wish all the women a happy one. A safe one, too. I support women's rights and their freedom to choose and what they do and everything. My eyes are up here. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, be sexy as you like, ladies. I'm sexy too. Look at my booty.
So, yes, again, bear these in mind if you're going to, like, keep things to Chris, is that Chris will only say things that he thinks are going to make him look popular, and then will immediately turn round to objectifying himself almost immediately. So, what do you think your impressions, or rather, what do you think your stances on Chris are from then? Because I'm not only trying to exemplify the sort of events that lead up to the situation that Chris found himself in, but the fact that Chris had still not changed and was still more resorting to just saying things that he felt were worth saying when, you know, in the long run they probably were better off not saying. And there's more things to cover, including this. Well, I suppose we could just take a look at this. This is the real beginning of this on the 12th of April, so this is really where it begins.
So anyway, got a bit of a situation here going on at home. But y'all do know that I'm still recovering from all the past hatred and abuse I had to put up with. Okay, that's a bit better distracting. I mute the television. But anyway, so yeah, got some financial problems coming up and about right now. So, I mean, y'all don't have to buy anything. Donations with every person being able to donate at least $1. You can help. Y'all can help me and my mother find a piece of home and be able to help take care of our expenses and everything. And I'm still getting back into the groove of putting everything together, working on a daily basis, and definitely working on putting myself on a day schedule. And there's that.
I'm sorry, I've just forgotten that I gotta let's see, okay, that's better. Sorry about that.
Damn autistic pause in my head.
By the way, he says autistic pause, but in a video only about a couple of weeks later, he claims to be cured of autism. So if you think Chris is going to be let off the hook for just suggesting stuff like that, don't bother. We go back and forth on these sorts of things, and no, it's not a good idea to give Chris the benefit of the doubt about this, especially because of what he does later in the same vein of this crisis.
I think that's the autism essentially. You feel the anxiety, and the damn autism reacts to it as if it's a piece of change and it's not routine or something. Anyhow, so since I pretty much am reaching out to everybody for donations, I just want to remind everybody that the donations under $10. Pretty much the only thing I can offer from there is your name in the back of the book or on the page of the book. But essentially, aside from that, I just want to remind everybody of the donations levels. Yeah, so $10 for one full written, drawn, and wait a minute. Oh right. Shoot. Let me just start from the beginning here. Yeah, as a devout fan to the Sanchi and Roadshoe comic book series, I'm certain you do want to see more pages, since I ended up with Claire's block and forced into hiatus in 2007. Still working on building the routine to get myself back on drawing on a daily basis and creating on a daily basis and everything. Yeah, still doing that. Working on trying to make a schedule and getting on that routine, and I have my own typical unexpected incoming stresses and life problems. But anyway, if you don't feel like buying a big thing, you can donate as little as $1. But here are the donation levels once again, where you would get a gift I would personally put together for you. Yeah, but essentially, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Complete past new pages be uploaded soon after they are created. Even though I've been, still trying to get back in the routine and everything.
Chris might possibly want to consider getting into the routine of being more organized, because listen, if Chris was if I was going to go on the record and beg for money, I would be a lot more sincere and a little bit more open about what exactly I could offer and that sort of thing, because you need to know sort of what you're getting into. Chris is sort of just I don't know if it's just because he's not speaking clearly or he doesn't even look as if he's actually written anything down at all. One would be led to suggest that Chris is just sort of making this as he goes along. And by the way, let's just sort of get towards the end of this, because apparently these can go as nearly as high as $500. So let's just get into that.
Anyway, oh darn it, I keep losing my place. Okay, Okay, yes, in the $1,000 level. Making a change to that might be so. But currently, as it lists here, you get the entire Wave 1 set of Sanchi, Roadshoe, Blake, Wild Bubbles, Angelica, Punchy, and Magic Chan, as well as me in the 3-piece set. A Sanchi medallion, ordered custom therein. And you may request the autograph photo, the book and the drawing. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, coupon codes definitely not valid for the donations, and every
You would imagine that probably coupon codes would have been a good idea because, again, if you're begging, you know what, beggars can't be choosers, something that Chris didn't get the memo on that because, well, as you'll come to see.
Donation is indeed a tax deduction write-off that y'all can make for yourselves if applicable. I mean, it varies from person to person, I'm sure. But anyway, I'm just a single person trying to help provide for this family, and I can only do so much and get money in and whatnot, so your donations are a real great help. So please, donate as much as you can, even if it's a little $1 per person. Every little bit helps. And if you can donate big, that would be really greatly appreciated. Very much. All for the peace of mind, so I can get back into drawing and have more, and be able to be feeling so much better about life and everything. In addition to me feeling better about myself, even though I am, and I'm having a more positive outlook on life. And I'm not reading any of those comments either, so you may as well stop right there.
Funny as well that Chris seemed pretty determined in what he was saying there, but he didn't seem particularly determined in trying to list out the Patreon requests. One would suggest, again, Chris is just putting this on, so if he sounds genuine that he needs help, then he will get even more money.
Anyhow, so please go to the listing below. Go to the Etsy listing of donations, a donation page that'll be listed below this video, and donate as much as you can. Thank you. Y'all have a good, safe day. Wrong button.
Oh, and by the way, in case you're thinking this is like the low point where things get better, unfortunately they don't. That's just the beginning of this, and unfortunately this specific channel, I don't think it has everything basically in order, so we're gonna have to like jump through some hoops a little bit. And well, here's like because usually what Chris actually started doing was actually getting to read like fan fictions and doing like things on copypastas or creepypastas, but then things got worse and worse over time, because Chris goes from sounding like only 4 days later from sounding jubilant to announcing a new company to, well, 8 days later to this. And we're going through all the times he's begged as well, because chronologically I'll be able to give you guys a little bit of insight as to just sort of where Chris was in his mind.
I'm kind of feeling frazzled right now. Just my brain, but anyway. Yeah, we need some more money. Seriously, donations, please. I mean, yeah, call it part of the donation drive, if you will, but push comes to shove. Something definitely came up recently beyond my control, and I just need I just need a few donations, please. Please help. I'll put the link underneath this video, but please send me a donation, like, you know, maybe 10, 20 bucks, please.
It should be worth noting that Chris immediately after this spent $100 on a Dokimakura, which is a Japanese or anime inspired body pillow, and then Chris almost immediately bought a Lego set at an extortionate price, which we'll be able to get into later as well. So aside from, so you may think at this point Chris had the fortitude to possibly acknowledge the fact that, you know what, this jubilation about Chris's imaginary figures, about what would he make as Solitude of Entertainment would go into business and selling stuff on Zazzle. So by the time that just didn't go anywhere, Chris decided to go to the horse's mouth and actually try and make a proposition to Sega. And for what they're worth, you can see once again, Chris, being completely unemployable, still thinks he has a case for unsolicited ideas towards Sega. I'm going to just do a little bit of editing. I will be right back. Okay, so all we managed to do was just to resize, put up a different display capture so we could actually get a proper scope of the video. So here we go. Apparently, like I said, this is Chris's idea of trying to get himself out of a hole. And, just you wait and see how well this goes. You would have thought Chris could have tidied up this large collection of Amazon shipments behind him. So, he doesn't look as though he's trying to beg, but here we go.
So let's skip the introductions and get right down to business. You want what I got? But you gotta go through me and me alone, Christine Weston Chandler, Ruckersville, Virginia, in order to get. And lucky for you, I am open to such an offer of partnership. I would offer you license to my original creation, Sancho and Roast in the city of Quickville, as well as the world. Yeah, the world and all that. Partnership would come with certain pre-arrangements. I would remain in creative control of Sancho and all associated media. I will be the sole owner of Sancho. Sega's role here will be to expand the Sancho brand name as well as Roastu, and will help produce the various media, including video games, cartoons. These profits would be shared 50% between the two parties. However, I would also need an annual salary and some common employment benefits. My salary for being in the senior management position of the Sancho product at Sega would be $100,000 a year. I would require a senior title and a preferably corner office, even though I would be working at home. I would also need employees under me to assist with the administrative and creative sides of my Sancho project. But we will get to those later. Due to my hectic lifestyle, I would need the ability to work from home.
Actually, I think I've made the decision. I'm going to cover a lot of Chris's business propositions in a separate video. But the only important things I want you to take away from this is that Chris seems to be under the impression that Sega is just going to give all this money. These come across as more demands than anything else. And like I discussed before with we're discussing Chris's businesses, anyone could just straight up look at Chris and suggest that this comes across as idea theft. And because Chris doesn't actually have things in place to protect him legally, there's not really much he could do. And by the way, this is about 9 days later after Chris had bought an extortionate Lego set, as well as his waifu body pillow. And he's still asking for money. And just watch this. I'm just going to keep quiet.
This is my waifu. Her name is Naru. We've been together for a few weeks now. Nothing wrong with that. We're still getting to know each other pretty much, and it's all in my head, really. Hey, y'all are welcome to share your waifus anytime. Anyway, second half of the month, we need some more donations around here to help out. Get some more food around here. My mom loves to eat bananas. Quite serious about that. And we could do better on food as well. Otherwise we end up just we're not getting everything we need nutritionally. So please donate, help us once again.
One thing as well you're going to notice, there's a small pattern throughout these videos, is that Chris doesn't particularly look very motivated to say what he's going to actually do to get money, or why anybody should be giving money to Chris at all, especially because a lot of people, even at this point, were under the impression that they were just going to go to useless junk, all over his room, including his body pillow. That's one of the reasons why people won't do it. And by the way, Chris, what Chris tried to do was try to do like Let's Plays of Uncharted. He even tried to do one called this. And again, one thing you're going to notice is that Chris is just completely done with the facade of trying to humble himself. So you guys may as well see this. It's only really necessary towards the end, so just bear that in mind.
How do I get up?
I've never played Uncharted, by the way.
That one makes sense. And sorted. There, I made it out alive. Now give me $5.
Yeah, just, I made it out alive, now give me $5. As though, for some reason, that was demanding enough to be given money. And, by the way, as a result of Chris's laziness, it resulted in other videos, well, in situations where Chris's own Etsy shop got taken down. He claims that his shop was on vacation, but the reality is that Chris, as a result of complaints filed against Chris for failing to deliver orders, it ended in, well, let's hear Chris's explanation anyway.
Hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler.
Despite the fact that you can hear Chris's vibrating bra, because Chris thinks that that's just how breasts grow, I think.
Coming to you live once again from home, with actually a couple of updates in reference to the shop. Yes, the shop is the Quickville Shopping Etsy store is currently on vacation until I catch up with my orders. So again, that's on vacation, and hopefully I'll have all non-book orders by the end of this month, and then the books ready to go out as, if not sooner than mid-July, going out. And also the books will be relocating to a different location, and soon enough after I get things going, more things going, I have the second branch of Quickville Shopping over on Zazzle opening soon, with official pieces that I will personally contributed to and actually gained the pieces of the money to. But anyway, aside from that, yeah, trouble's happening here at home again. So I'm really pressed, strapped. My mom's bothering me. While my mind, more than the weight of a hippopotamus on my head, I have practically the planet Pluto. And I don't care whether it's been declassified or not, I still consider it a planet.
Chris getting passionate about things that in the long run don't really matter, especially when Chris is still, in severe debt, and that for reasons I don't quite understand, Chris is once again just turning this into a begging video. But again, if Chris, which would counteract the idea that the shop was on vacation, because Chris could have just straight up says that outside of catching up on Etsy orders, I'm going to actually put in more stuff, do stuff that's actually going to generate a bit of excitement that will make some people say, you know what, it's okay, we'll wait, even though the shop is on vacation. Because Chris doesn't do that, it leads people to suggest that, again, owing to Chris's previous antics, that he's simply too lazy and wouldn't even do it even if he could.
Anywho, so yeah, with that, and I'm unable to connect to the YouTube from my PlayStation, so I gotta use the darn selfie stick, and that's why it's a little bit shaky right now. Anyway, so aside from that, I don't know. Oh, right, donations. You can help donate to me by clicking the support button here on the YouTube channel, or you can directly send me money through PayPal to my phone number. Which that's my best guess, or I don't know if you can send it directly to my name.
Once again, you could sort of tell that Chris, when Chris is just straight up saying, you know, things that, you know, donate to me, but Chris is like even gets to the point where he doesn't even try to articulate that actually he needs to be like way more specific, and that I don't really understand. Chris, it's just, you know, when you actually have something to say, just go ahead and say it. You've got to know exactly what it is you want and what you want to communicate to the people. You know, the people you want to encourage to buy stuff from your store. So why are you just stumbling over yourself, Chris? You need to do better than this.
Yeah, I don't know everything, but anyway, click the support button, subscribe, watch the advertisements alongside my video, send it to me via PayPal to my phone number. But anyway, aside from that, I know, my time, zippity-doo, we're gonna have fun. I'm gonna drop it on the way. We're gonna have some fun. I'm dropping around down. I'm having to be myself. I don't necessarily need a sword, but my figure's hanging on to one. Yippity-doo, whoopity-doo. Let's see if this worked there. Yep, got too much on my head. My mind, my worries, so yeah. Could use some help. So I can, I mean, I'm trying to get money in this house, but Mom, yeah, too much. Have a good day.
So, while we are on the subject, oh hey look, it's one of my videos. Damn, 46 views already, and like, I didn't even realize it was even nearly an hour and a half long, but anyway, the point I'm trying to get across, ladies and gentlemen, is that, again, Chris, even in times of crises, doesn't really do much to help himself, also because of certain things like this, when you know what, if Chris can't convince people, how about something a bit more drastic?
Oh, hello, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home. Anyway, my mom here is in need of medications for her lungs and whatnot. Alright? Yeah. At least say something, let them know you are alive.
Yeah, you gotta think about how bad things are.
Well, anyway, it's a $100 medication, and she might not be able to make it through the rest of this month, of which we get more money afterwards if you don't donate. So please send your donations that could get to me most direct to my email address through PayPal. Please do it very soon. Help us out here, please. Thank you.
Now, it should be worth noting that Chris did delete the video after approximately 5 minutes, but the fact that Chris thought it was a good idea to make it at all, and it's not the first time, even in this period, that Chris would use Bob to instill people to buy from her, is like one thing and another. It then resulted into Chris making a series of 4 short videos about just outright begging for money, to be honest. That's what I'd call these. These aren't selling anything, they're just begging. If you wanted to see what, like, an actual YouTube hobo looks like, well, this is it. So I don't really have there is no better way of putting it than that.
$20, $50 American. Hey, buddy, please donate. We need the money right now.
Chris doesn't even think to, say please. Well, does he say please?
$50 American. Hey, buddy, please donate. We need the money right now.
Well, he does say please, but it's just, it's again one of those things where you've got to immediately associate the fact that Chris doesn't seem to be doing any good for himself, as you might imagine. And by the way, things don't get better because, well, things do sort of like get better from here because Chris does make several attempts to actually, make videos that, well, were paid commissions, but again, we'll go through a couple of those.
Aside from that, I would like to remind everybody that I do video requests upon payment. Payment sent to me via PayPal to my email address, and rules where I do not reveal anything about myself unless by accident. It's not
by accident, Chris says. Well, Chris, that's why we do things that's why we do things in multiple takes. You don't just say, here it is, one go, and unfortunately I leaked my social security number. Too bad, but again, Chris, that's why we did it. I mean, think about what you're doing, Chris. You can't tell me you're exempt from thinking just because you always claim to be under stress. You know what? A lot of people are under stress when they have to do things that perhaps they don't like. It's called, well, getting a job, but at the same time, well, again, a lot of this could be asserted under the act of just get a job, Chris, and this will all smooth itself over. Or make sure you actually fulfill your orders and do what you're paid to do. Because bear in mind, $1,000 was what Chris received for 100 pages, and Chris only did 16. And somebody rightfully called Chris out on this.
Too offensive, and due to recent inputs, I will not record my mother. Okay? It's just me. Alright? And also the pricing, it starts at $50, but I'm negotiable to as low as $10 and no less. Which it just depends on what you would have me say or do in the video. Okay? Sing a song. Full song. That goes the full amount right there, $50. Okay? Thank you. Have a good day.
You might also be wondering if Chris ever opened a Cameo account. Would he possibly? I can actually imagine Chris would probably try to do something like open a Cameo account, but I think even that would be a little bit too much. Oh, and by the way, this is somebody again requesting. I think it's like this one specifically. 26 seconds for $50. Even if this was done on Cameo, I don't think this would have been of great value, but just bear this in mind.
Hello, Alex. This is Christine Chandler coming live to you from home. Pretty much an inconvenient moment.
The first thing Chris says is at an inconvenient moment. No, it isn't, Chris. Somebody paid for this. You get off your ass and deliver. Are you kidding me? Again, I know in case I've never spoke about this before, but Chris, when somebody goes out of their way to actually pay you to do something, you should not be saying that it's now intervening in your time. If you're not going to go to a 9-to-5 job, Chris, you've got to think of other ways to come up to actually get money. And you should be grateful. And that's a big thing that overrides a lot of the issues, is that even when Chris gets money, if he doesn't just spend it all immediately, he doesn't actually thank people who've gone out of their way to support him. Who is going to support a creator who is that vindictive?
Anyway, wish you a happy birthday. I hope you had a good one today anyway. Better late in the day than the day after. Anyway, happy birthday to you, Troy.
And Chris couldn't even get it out on time. What a piece of shit.
Oslo fan, zap to the extreme. Take care. Stay safe.
26 seconds, basically just to say, okay, and you inconvenienced me by doing this. What a... By the way, there's more stuff coming out, and again, more begging by Chris, where he was whinging on about, his voice. Chris being banned from Facebook for a while because of death threats that Chris made towards Donald Trump. Then Chris begging for money again and was called out for it. And then, but this is sort of when Chris actually starts up his Patreon. He did get some backers, but then again, there's also this. I feel like I just need to highlight this one, especially because of what Chris does. that will leave you just willing to punch a hole in the screen because, well...
Hey there, everybody, Christine Chandler coming live from home once again. And by pay request, here's a birthday dedication. Happy birthday, Ricky. You are turned 32 on the 20th, so good for you. And I turned...
good for you, whatever.
I don't know, 34 this year? Year earlier. Anyway, so, I don't know, here's a little song of that. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, I'm using a selfie stick.
You know, you gotta really consider the fact about how low quality these are when Chris has no... When him giving cheers and saying happy birthday, all of these become increasingly lazier and lazier and lazier. You know what I would have probably have done? If somebody was asking me to celebrate their birthday, I would have got like one of those confetti cannons and just fired it in the air and just say, and even have like a banner saying happy birthday and maybe like a couple of balloons floating down. Make it feel as though it looks a little bit more special. And Chris, well, if I was Chris, that would possibly, you know, justify there being a $50 cost for these. Come on, somebody on Cameo should do that and it would save a lot of the aggro.
Random thing, random. Hippie hippie boomba, hippie boomba, hippie boomba, hippie
By the way, this camera's on for a while.
Hippie, whoops. Honey cat, it's your big. Hello. How you doing?
I mean, I know fine well about what happens to Sorbet later, but if Chris ever fucking hurt that poor cat, oh god, I'd be begging for my money back. No joke. I wonder if anybody has ever done that before, about whether they just ask for their money back after this, because this feels like really, really low hanging fruit.
Okay, so, yes. Happy birthday, Ricky. Hope you have a safe and pleasant one. And please forgive the brightness all around. There's a light there. The light's on up there. Well, you gotta be able to see me. Well, have a good day, everyone.
Sometimes I wish we couldn't, Chris, but moving on. Other things as well. This is the sort of part where things get a little bit complicated because I want to find like the videos in 2018 when things really went off the handle for Chris, and they might be here somewhere, so I'm going to catch up with you guys in a bit once I manage to find them. So I'll be right back. Okay, and by the way, so we are back again, and what we're actually going to get into is a lot of the videos from 2018. Now, this is where really things start to like actually fly off the handle, because I know these videos are sort of like a little bit out of order, but don't worry, I'll still be able to get the same points across. And this was sort of only like a couple of like weeks following the events of the Dimensional Merge, and Chris, well, Dimensional Merge, about the Idea Guys extortion, and where Chris suddenly realizes, okay, this doesn't look good. So videos like this started popping up, a bit more extreme, and Chris looking a little bit more engaged, which suggests, again, Chris will just look engaged whenever he decides to want to look engaged. So,
hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again. Please, please, please buy the things I'm listing on eBay right now. My mother and I really need the money. Please help us immediately. Thank you.
Or I should say, it's more begged to do this. And then Chris went to do stuff like this.
Hello.
What Chris started doing was that he started selling his own brother's comic books. I don't even know if Chris was ever given permission by Cole Smithy to do this, or if Cole Smithy much cared. Probably he just left all his stuff behind and, well, left his old self behind in Virginia. Probably for the best, but then Chris decided, you know what, take advantage of what is basically junk.
Hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again, and today I offer you a very special offering. Not just a whole bunch of comic books, look at all of them. Very, very old.
I can't really tell what most of those are.
With some age to them, but they're all in quite good condition. And there's more over here in this box. And believe it or not, these books were all by none other than, and with official confirmation too, because it was also in the box, which I dug out of the workshop recently, by Mr. Cole Smithy himself. Huh? You know him, and I'm going to put a link to his joesmithy.com website in the description below, as well as a link to his YouTube channel. But right now, also, I'm going to turn this over to my mother. Now, Barbara Ann Weston Chandler, do you personally recognize all...
Oh, and by the way, can I just point out, remember when Chris said he wasn't going to be including Bob? I suppose that might have been for the shoutouts, but, well, your guess is as good as mine as to whether that applies to stuff like this.
All these comic books in front of you?
Yes, I do.
And do you attest that they each belonged to at one point to your son, Joseph Cole Smithy?
Yes.
And not only that, but with each book, you're going to get a signature from this lovely old mama of ours.
Did you hear that, by the way? Yes, I heard... Listen.
Lovely old mama of ours.
Okay, so, do you remember like a couple of weeks ago when I did a video about Chris Chan and manipulation? Well, that almost like underlines just about every other video that Chris has ever done when he's begging. It doesn't come across whatsoever about being in debt, although some of them absolutely were. But these are just, in any case, they're just a way to like manipulate his audience. The audience Chris thinks has, but not the kind of audience Chris was ever expecting. And smile, you know what I mean? Just ugh. It's, which again, you know what? It makes the whole idea about what Chris did with his mom. It makes that accusation a lot more concrete if Chris could just manipulate people just to smile.
And a certificate of authenticity that backs it up, definitely, and so furtherly, each of these books belong to Mr. Joe Cool Smithy himself. And also, each of these books will be packed in a comic book sleeve with cardboard backing, with that little certificate inside each of them. I'm a little warm, pardon me. Anyway, and there will be no free shipping on any of them. And international shipping, of course, will be optional, but will be more expensive.
By the way, the reason why there is no free shipping is because Chris got into bad habits about the idea that he immediately spent any money he was given, so it left him unable to actually pay for the shipping itself, akin to when he sold the Sonic totem. So whenever Chris says there won't be any free shipping, just bear these things in mind, because if there's one thing Chris will not do is spend any money that he's trying to, well, he should be earning and should be turning into a business. Chris cannot run a business for this reason, because Chris is not accountable, responsible, negligible, or in any way, shape or form that would say to him that he should be trusted with money. And by the way, this goes from bad to worse very, very quickly, owing to, and you may have been keeping track about the actual dates of some of these videos because they were helpfully pointed out by the well. I managed to actually find the YouTube channel I was looking for, the Quickfill Library, so if you want to see all of these things, then make sure to check them out, because they're basically just the videos that Chris sort of just removed anyway, but those troopers on both the Quickie and Kiwi farms managed to get these things in order.
Expensive, so that's something else to consider. These will be going on eBay, each with their individual listing, and for the average current selling price from everybody else, you have my official guarantee. You also have my mother's official guarantee.
Yes.
Alright, thank you all very much for your consideration and helping us with the household.
I have no idea about whether or not any of these like actually sold, but yeah. And by the way, things go from basically Chris tried to sell more of Cole's stuff. There's only thing you need to know is just that is. And by the way, you get also videos like these.
Hey everybody, Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again in response to the post I just made on my Patreon to give you all a little bit of an update That's definitely true. I have been catching up on a whole bunch of quick events. But anyway, to pretty much summarize it up, definitely in a bit of a quote, pretty much how I'm feeling everything.
Alright! Shut up! I hear you! I'm coming down! These pretzels are making me thirsty!
Whatever that was. But again, you know what's quite interesting, actually, just if for no other reason, then Chris is just... If Chris was pumping out as many videos as these, like, daily, let alone, like, weekly or monthly, Chris could, in many ways, earn some ad revenue through the videos he makes. Now, for you guys, for you guys' information, I'm trying to go about this purely through the motive of just wanting to relay information about Chris. And I don't exactly know what the hell I would earn if I, turned the monetization on for any of these. Also, I'm pretty sure for what I'm talking about, I couldn't really be monetized anyway. However, even I could probably make like a good attempt at this. But again, that's not really what the point of these are. And it's strange to say, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that, well, this is the sort of an idea that never occurred to Chris. Also, probably he was only, if he was doing this for any other reason, it was to give money to Joshua Wise and who was the Stephen Boyd, the idea guys. That's probably the only reason why they were behind this. And then, of course, you see Chris try to sell his Pokemon cards and talk with his teeth.
Hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again. Captain's log, stardate 01312018.
So, interesting enough, okay, so, for what they're worth, that date's very, very significant for me because that was the single worst day of my entire life. Because, that was the date of my 20th birthday. And I became so embarrassingly sick that despite going to university, despite not feeling well at all, and despite that basically I was sick for at least a good 90 minutes, in which I had to like basically buy myself an entirely like new shirt and perhaps maybe even like a new jacket because I so completely ruined my other one by this point through through my vomiting and stuff like that I had to like just some way or some shape or form get home, and like nobody from my uni was that interested that I was like physically very unwell, and I sort of had a 6.5 hour power nap by the time I got home at about 2 o'clock. And yeah, that was basically my entire 20th birthday. Incredibly sick and feeling as though nobody could care less, which I know again people were concerned, I suppose, but it didn't come across that way. So that's my one memory of my 20th birthday, was being incredibly sick and feeling incredibly alone. And I would do well, like, I still attribute that to being the single worst day of my life. But, well, it meant it could only get better from there. And, well, for what they're worth, Chris is just selling his Pokemon cards. I'm sure there must have been some value in some of these, because Chris was an avid collector, including what he thinks is valuable by signing a copy of Nintendo Power, and then things. But then it doesn't help by the fact that Chris wasted money on buying like an ancestry thing just so Chris could know what his background was. Then there's things like this where Chris would film Bob begging for money.
Please buy our comic books. We need the money for a mortgage.
Oh wait, I forgot. That's right. This is when time passed and evidently people were not buying from Chris, and then it gets better again because.
Hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again. We're going upstairs for a moment.
Chris is trying to like sell off their signatures, including Bob.
Hey Mom.
Don't drag Bob into this.
Trouble you for a minute?
I'll be there in a minute.
You'll be there in a bit. I have the camera running right now. We talked about the signature.
God Almighty. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to, like, just look at the stare that Chris gives in this shot. It's something straight out of a horror film like this.
Over you for a minute? I'll be there in a minute. You'll be there in a minute. I have the camera running right now.
Just the way Chris like looks down, and the way that the camera is so like it's a little bit too up close and like.
We talked about the signature.
And the way just oh my god, that is creepy.
So everybody right here, this is my mom, Barbara, and what we're doing today is apparently there is a complaint from a customer. I better turn on the overhead light here if I can muster it. Light. Light. That was the light. Light's not turning on that one. Or is it? It's not turning on that one. I'll turn myself around and yeah, here we go. Bare light situation. Okay. There's my mom, Barbara Ann, and I'm giving her my pen. You see, and she's signing her name and dating today's date. Oh shoot! What's today? I didn't check. I'll just put down. Wait a minute, I can check the count. My mom has a calendar. Shoot. I believe today is.
It's impressive about how little Chris puts into these anyway. I mean, I know that trying to show Barbara for these videos is about as shameless as it gets for Chris's standards, but you really gotta worry just how bad things really must have gotten by the point that just Chris didn't even think to say we'll get sorted like this, or we'll get things organized in this way. Chris is just like, no, we'll clumsily like move from room to room and try to get like a video going, and he doesn't even bother to like list the complaints he's getting, because Chris still received complaints because like everything else Chris touches, it turns to shit.
It's the 28. Yeah, there you go. It's 28. So go ahead. Alright, so yeah, you just wrote that, and it's 28, 2018. Alright, and now I'll sign it. We're doing this today because somebody complained about my mother's signature not being legitimate compared to mine, so there's my mother's signature. She just signed it.
I can barely make it out, and the way Chris still holds his pen
my
is...
signature. So hopefully this settles that dispute. Just gotta make sure I can see that fully up.
You can't, Chris. It looks like garbage. And speaking of garbage...
Hello everyone, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again. Now, from my recent painting projects, I had an accident. I spilled some paint on my hand-drawn cover of Financhu number 14, as well as the first 3 pages. So I'm going to be tracing and redrawing these 4 items. So at this point, I'm going to be putting these up on eBay. So if any of y'all would like something that was originally hand-drawn with me from amongst my books, now's a good time. Even though it's a bit damaged, but still, you know how it is with artists. That's what makes it more unique. And I'll personally put a certificate of authenticity on all these, and these will come in a page sleeve. So step right up and pay some good money for a little bit more.
Good money. Now, guys, I just have to ask the question, is that if your child ruined a piece of artwork and you try to flock it on eBay for money, do you think, would you be put in a mental institution if you did this and you sold some work that was absolutely useless? No, of course you wouldn't pay for it, because, well, who would? But Chris thinks that that's more than enough. And by the way, again, things go for
Look, everyone.
This is, again, time passed, and we can only assume that nobody bought the damaged artwork.
I know you want me to show myself in a video doing what I'm doing for my mom, with using the money to help pay her back. But rest assured, the money that I will be getting, is going towards helping my mother. Alright? And it's also going towards helping me as well, because it's not just her that has the problems here, I have the problems too.
Anything else, Chris?
So just, please buy the Transformer toys from me, buy everything from me that I put on eBay, please, 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 please!
He doesn't even end the videos by saying thank you as well, because it gets a little bit more insane.
Hello everybody, this is Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again with a most hearty thank you to Jack. That was a Jack from up north who essentially paid me to go to BronyCon. Awesome. Very awesome. So, with a few more other arrangements I need to make, hopefully I will be there this year. So, that's awesome news. Thank you, Jack. And aside from that, we're still going to need as much money as possible.
I'm just going to stop it there because, again, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to understand how bad this must look. And this continues to get, like, from bad to worse somehow, because you would probably be under the impression that if Chris was... Why would Chris prioritize or even think about BronyCon or conventions at that point if he was only going to whinge? Like, it's saying, oh, thank you for paying for me to go to BronyCon, but still give me more money anyway, because I feel like I earned that much. Fuck that. I would have been like, Chris, I want my money back, and almost immediately. And despite this, Chris still begs. And oh, by the way, this is like this is the famous stream where Chris tries to auction off his stuff via Twitch, and well, this happens.
Good luck. We're short. I'm gonna chop you. I'm gonna burn you. Buy us off eBay. Give us a home. Give us a home with significant authenticity. Christine Chandler autograph. All right.
You're gonna transform anime, aren't you?
Yes, I'm from the animated series.
Chris clearly losing his mind, thinking that the only way to actually sell these things or advertise them is by playing with them and sounding completely unhinged. That's the sort of business model people want. That's why Billy Mays got so successful, by being completely unhinged of what he did.
Give me money! We need money! Pay mortgage! Pay bills! Pay bills! Do this! Do that! Do that!
Chris, I've got to do this again because, well, this is Chris's ambitions to advertisement, like, amount to this.
Give me money! We need money! Pay mortgage! Pay bills! Pay bills! Do this! Do that!
Chris, are you insane? Because this is not an advertisement. Like, you could say that Chris is actually trying to make reparation. Maybe he sold some things because his room looks a little bit more spare than before. But no, even that's not enough. Because remember, despite him, if Chris sold any of his stuff, he was still owed he still gave $6,000 away, and his house was teetering on foreclosure. And it gets, well, it doesn't get better, it gets worse because, well... That totally makes me want to buy it now, that Chris just straight up damaged his stuff. And then Chris shills in his mother again. Yeah, I'm not going to show that. It's a bit disturbing, but...
Batman! 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 Look at this, it's doing something, look at it.
Okay, that's it. I'm not even going to go into that again, because Chris just babbles and talks to himself. And Chris, for some reason, for spending many years on the internet, never really got good at orating himself when it comes to, like, doing YouTube. You know what? Again, and I've been doing this for 6 years, and whether you could say this is just because I had the benefit of hindsight of knowing exactly what to do and what not to do through Chris and among other YouTubers, but this is just like, it's common sense.
I'm entertaining everybody. You're paying for this entertainment. You're gonna go to my eBay store. The links are in my Twitter, where you found the link to this thing. They're streaming. How somebody's recording this. You're going to my eBay right now. You're gonna buy this thing. You're gonna pay $100 for this thing, and for this 6-piece figure, and
broke.
you're gonna get autographed certificate of authenticity. You're paying for this very rare item and a certificate of authenticity. So buy it now.
So,
No.
again, that's the problem with this order, is that it goes in reverse order, so you gotta have to, like, move up. And by the way...
What, bro? Oh, let's listen to other place car sounds.
I'm starting that again. Actually, you know what? I know this must be like a really distressing time for Chris, but I'm kind of like... It's a little bit entertaining sometimes, but... in case you're wondering, no, I don't feel bad for Chris, because, like I said, this giving $6,000 away was absolutely Chris's fault, and I don't really know where I'm meant to feel bad for him in all this, because of everything else we talked about when it comes to Chris's rule number 16, ladies and gentlemen, of financial responsibility, is that if you are going to actually throw your hat into the ring to, you know, make money, you ought to sound like you know what you're doing, and I don't think Chris has a clue what he's doing.
Oh, let's listen to other place car sounds.
And before anybody asks, no, I do not think Chris is having a mania episode. I think he's having his... I'm just going to make random noises. I'm going to screech at the top of my voice until somebody gives in and actually buys this stuff from me. I reckon that's Chris's level of attentiveness when it comes to advertisement. Or maybe, possibly, I don't know. Maybe I'm just clutching at straws. But then again, I've been trying to chronologically analyze all of this to see where this started and where it's ending up. And we're sort of nearing the end of the videos anyway, so...
Look at this place car!
It's not also helped by the fact that these are in random order.
Dual cons. Dual compare. Battle trap. Battle trap.
Also, by the way, I'll just come out and say it again, is that, Chris, here is what you do. You pick up the toy. You say, oh, hello, this is a little rare figurine of a Transformers figurine. I think this is meant to be one of Soundwave's little mini-bots. Is that if it's kind of rare, if you want to buy it, $5. You know what? And also, you could do this really cool trick where it looks as though it's waving, but really it's staying still. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. I mean, when was the last time you ever stuck on the television and saw an ad where somebody screamed inanely and babbled nonsense, saying bye 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 Nino Nino Mayday Mayday Mayday? Like, I would actually keep watching, but I wouldn't buy anything just because for the entertainment value. Chris is somehow even more annoying than the 118 advertisements. Tell me if you're a boomer and you remember those ads. I sadly do, but I'm glad they've not been a thing for at least 12 years, I think. And by the way, this is Chris trying to sell them, by the way, is by playing and screeching like an idiot.
Oh, here's loud! Greeting, man. Guess what? Your comments are not being read. Your comments are not being read whatsoever.
You know, probably Chris will probably rue that, because some of them might have been with people who would actually want to buy them. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Actually, I'm done with doing these toys. They're basically all the same, outside of when Barbara comes in and Chris just sort of behaves very creepily. But we'll see.
There's not a lot of wisdom in their head. What are you doing to me?
By the way, this is meant to be Chris trying to, like, strike his mother by tapping her in the head, and Barbara looks just as confused as I did.
Be smart. Act smart. That's all. Okay. Thank you, Mom. Love you. Love you. Give us a hug.
Given what we know later, let's just say that this is what they call in the trade foreshadowing. And, by the way, I'm pretty sure, like, again, God almighty, there's so many of these about the videos, and then things like go from really extreme to this.
Go.
Everybody out there, buy things off of eBay.
Off of Christine's eBay.
Off of Christine's eBay to help us pay our mortgage.
Please.
Thank you.
I mean, let's just be completely honest, ladies and gentlemen. How did this, like... You gotta wonder how this... In case you're thinking this is as bad as it gets, no. The worst is still yet to come.
Please, everyone, help us.
Oh, wait, I forgot. No, it's this one that comes before that.
Hello, everybody. Christine Chandler coming to you live from home once again, and the mortgage payment is really due tomorrow, and we have to make 2 month payments this month, and we need like $200. So please get on eBay, buy the shit, buy the stuff, buy the things off of eBay. We need more money. And by the way, where did the money go from a bunch of previous sales recently? Oh, I caught up in the past 3 months of the Patreon books, and the rest of the money had to go towards the bills and everything, okay?
No kidding. No kidding. No shit that had to go on bills. What do you think? How do you think bills get paid?
So please buy now. We need mortgage payments. We need food for the rest of the month. Buy stuff over to eBay. I gave you my mother. There is no excuse. This is truth. This is no
And again,
lie. Buy now.
This is, you could say this is almost literally it. Literally the bottom. Where Chris just straight up demands money at this point. And when, again, time passed and this obviously did not work, we get videos like this.
Please, everyone, help us. Just the past 6 months, I can't talk about it, but the money we've been getting the past 6 months, we lost a whole bunch of money. And if we don't pay this mortgage, they're gonna foreclose on our house. So please help us. I'm gonna add more listings later, but for now, please go on to my eBay and buy everything that I will do right now. Please help us.
I know it's going to sound like a bit of a really insecure thing to say before we go any further with this, is the fact that, well, despite the fact that Chris immediately says he wants to go to too many games immediately after this, but I'm just going to say this for the record, and because really that's sort of the end of, like, the beggings at this point. There's probably a little bit, like, more into next year, but just so people are aware about this, have you actually ever noticed that Chris, at no point when he's ever been trying to beg for money, has Chris so much as shed a tear? Now, some people might argue it's not a necessary requirement, but to say that whether we should take Chris more seriously, but it is also somewhat of a requirement if Chris wants to look, if Chris was, like, genuinely very, very distressed. And through what we've seen so far is that Chris does not look legitimately distressed. He looks more aggravated and inconvenienced by the fact that the things that Chris has done have caught up with him. Why on earth should anybody be responsible to get Chris out of this when everything was his fault, and all Chris has decided to do is not take accountability for it? And that will mean that everybody will just say what Chris really is, a man-child. I know Chris does not like that term, but everything we've covered so far would suggest otherwise. So please bear that in mind. And, well, I trust you guys not to give money to Chris, but, well, it's worth just highlighting these sorts of things every so often. It's good for the soul. And so now we're back. We could actually, now that we've taken that sort of detour to describe just sort of how these the crisis has affected Chris, and Chris has decided to effectively do nothing whatsoever but make the situation worse and worse and worse. Let's now give into the fact that things couldn't nearly be as bad as they are because of... Oh, hang on one second. due to how Chris decided to act throughout the situation. And by the time we're done with this, article, well, ladies and gentlemen, you're beginning to wonder who on earth thought it was a good idea to give Chris money anyway. I think the best, the only real term I could use to describe it is that, what's that one? There's like one specific mean. I've locked something and I need to like, know what it is I've done just so I can. It's not that one, and yes, and. This should I should be able to like actually adjust the size of this for some reason. It's not letting me do it. Yeah, it's strange. It's not letting me adjust this. Let me see if I can. Oh, okay. There we are. That's better. So there we are. That's I'm glad I got that out of the way. So. Here we go. Chris's frivolous spending during the crises. Now, it is no secret, ladies and gentlemen, that during the Great Depression from 1929 till at least 1934, is that America still imported and exported thousands of millions in products and actually took in a considerable amount during these great testing periods. The same, however, cannot be said for Chris, because whilst, again, Europe was going through the great slump at this period, Chris was going through his own experience of the great slump. And bear in mind is that Britain also went through a severe housing shortage during the 1930s, which Chris didn't really go through, I suppose. Like any terminally irresponsible adult, Chris likes to keep his bedroom filled with toys while keeping his wallet empty. Below is a list of known expenses Chris has made during the Financhu crisis, collected from online posting and eBay purchase history. Some amounts are estimated, but all amounts are debilitating. During 2016, Chris was known to waste over $2,500 on toys, whilst whining and complaining that he needed money from his viewers. Please keep that in mind because I'll be repeating it over and over and over again. In late 2017, Chris spent a considerable amount of money to attend BronyCon. 3-day pass tickets were around $60 that he needed to pay on mortgage, but money spent on travel, food, souvenirs, and lodging is rounded to $2,000 to $3,000 by other attendees. Below is a list of known frivolous purchases made during the crises. There are doubtless many more are not known about, including cash purchases, also fast food perhaps. New PS4 console, $540. About 30 game purchases for the PS4, $600. $350 Ghostbusters Lego set bought on eBay for a higher price at $425.88. Chris spent $75. Chris must have been desperate or he was just stupid. Transformers action figures, $587. The Dokimura or his body pillow, $90. Skylanders toys, $195. Pokemon merchandise, $181.79. The Amiibo Smash series, the figure for Pit, $12.99. I'm Done Adulting, You Don't Say t-shirt for $23.99. Lego Dimensions assorted sets, $238. My Little Pony themed card sleeves. Sleeves, ladies and gentlemen, and Chris was saying
It's really due tomorrow, and we have
the mortgage payment was tomorrow, but it didn't stop Chris buying sleeves. A 14 carat yellow gold Cleopatra bar 16-inch necklace for $400. Now, it should be worth noting is that this was Barbara's necklace that she pawned herself to help pay for the mortgages, and Chris then had paid her back, which you may argue that's like for the best intentions, but it still didn't make things better. The Tokyo Treat Box, a minimum of $31 per month for 31 plus months, $976.50. And these things have like come up as well recently. These aren't things that have just been ignored. And by the way, this would have still been ongoing if Chris was not incarcerated. Skylanders Avatar products for use as a raffle prize, $750. Doopy Do-Over artwork, $80. An Xbox One. Chris bought, in the middle of a crisis at home, an Xbox One. And then the gold pass for Xbox Live, $59.99. Xbox Games, $89.94. The video game Sonic Forces, $33.99. DNA on Ancestry, $500. And bear in mind, where is the video for the Ancestry? I know it's like buried amongst these playlists somewhere, but the Ancestry video was in the middle of Bob begging for money that Chris shot, as well as Chris trying to sell off his Pokemon cards and some signatures, amongst other things. But remember, ladies and gentlemen,
do tomorrow, and
yes, the mortgage payment was tomorrow, but it didn't stop stuff like this from coming afloat. And finally, the 2018 video game God of War for $59.99. Total, $6,267.09. That's what Chris paid while he was going through economic suffering or hardships. Or perhaps maybe none of these things were true. Perhaps maybe Chris never was in any hardship. Maybe he was just an idiot who thought that it was a good idea to spend your money willy-nilly when you continually cry wolf, saying you don't have any. Now, as to what we discussed earlier, why Chris refuses to work. You want money? Get a job. Our response is that we are already employed by your boss's boss's boss, due to our better and special powerful abilities. Do those abilities include not being poor, Chris? Because why haven't you chosen that one? Therefore, for all of you haterade, chugging, get a job spouters out there, I suggest you shut up and enjoy your ability to settle in a cozy office or wherever. And this was Chris clinging onto his fantasies about the dimensional merge to justify why he's unemployed in the real world, but will still beg for money. My back is so itchy. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to resort to this. Yeah. 1 second. I've it's been driving me mad for the last 20 minutes. Not there. Oh, okay. Might be I would invest in a back scratcher, but I don't need one when this will have to suffice. You know what? Because I don't really want to contribute. Maybe Chris should have thought about this as well. And by the way, like I said, for many years, Chris did not even bother owning one of these to actually make his work look a little bit more presentable. If Chris actually invested in useful equipment that would have aided his work, you know what? Maybe his situation wouldn't nearly be as dire as it turned out to be. Despite actively begging for money since 2016 and a near miss with foreclosure and homelessness in May 2018, Chris has not attempted to get a job. Then again, the last job he's had dates all the way back to 2003. One of his real-life friends, a woman from his Pokemon club named Alexa, became concerned after seeing Chris repeatedly beg on Facebook. She suggested in November 2016 and again in April 2017 that he contact one of her family members who works at the Virginia DAWS, a government service that helps disabled individuals to find work. At the first suggestion, Chris didn't follow through. Well, for probably the very first time in his life, Chris did not follow through. And at the second, he fired off a rant against getting a job, forcing Alexa to back down. In his rant, Chris gave the following flimsy excuses. He was busy helping Bob and her pets, despite no trouble in going on a 3-day trip to another state without bringing them along in August 2017. Trolls ruined his background check / reputation. While it is true that a Google search on Chris reveals unsavory details, there are only records of facts. And there are agencies that find work for slow-in-the-mind adults that would not care about minor crimes or indiscretions. too late about Chris for that. Finding a job runs the risk of being discriminated against for his tom-girl gender. Bollocks to that. Stress. More bollocks. And he fears being incompetent. Well, don't be incompetent then, Chris. Don't think that you're going to look stupid. Focus on trying to make yourself better. That's much smarter than doing it that way. Later, Chris added more excuses for not wanting to work. In October 2017, Chris claimed that he was too busy with Quickville and his imaginary friends, in addition to helping Bob and his pets. In June 2019, Chris claimed that he was already employed by God to oversee the dimensional merge. But in between that time, remember, Chris was screaming this.
Is really due tomorrow!
Most of the claimed reasons hold no weight whatsoever. A background check, as explained by Jackie and Kim Wilson many times, only applies to legal records, and Chris's misdemeanors would not prevent him from getting a job. Fellow locals like William Elliott Waterman and Kenneth Engelhardt also have their names linked to their internet shenanigans, yet they have gained employment. Furthermore, discrimination on the basis of gender is illegal, especially as a result of a Supreme Court ruling on the 15th of June 2020. In reality, getting a job would probably reduce his stress over needing to beg in order to afford more toys. His excuses for being fearful of making mistakes and his obsession over his imaginary friends are blocks set down by his own mind, revealing that, rather than growing up and assuming responsibility for his future, he would rather remain a man-child forever. Chris's only plausible claim was in May 2018, when he feared that Weens and A-logs will harass him at work, similar to how they harassed the management of the Endgames into banning him. Well, I suppose the only thing I could say to that is that, well, whose fault was that, Chris? And you know fine well that this was like your fault. Don't put that shit on like other people. That's just not the right thing to do. In fact, it would be of some interest, ladies and gentlemen, like maybe when we get to the end of this, is that I sort of like talk about by the time I came off welfare myself and what it was like to actually almost be back in the real world. And I think I'll probably do that towards the end of this. But let's keep going. And specifically, why you shouldn't donate to Chris outside of the reasons I spent nearly an hour trying to explain. Buying things from Chris and or donating to him is not at all recommended, mainly because Chris has habitually neglected his customers. He has repeatedly failed to ship orders to his buyers on time and will ignore messages from customers about asking their purchases or give a myriad of excuses as to why they haven't shipped. If he does get around to shipping them, his naive methods of packaging only cause items to arrive damaged. Other times, he simply won't ship items at all, as seen perfectly with his Patreon. If Chris is angry enough, though, he can use your information against you. This was infamously seen when Mr. Smith attempted to purchase a medallion from Chris and, after Chris failed to make and ship one, filed a claim against him on eBay, causing Chris's PayPal to be locked. Chris's responses were by furiously doxing Mr. Smith, and on another buyer on Facebook, both of whom eventually received prank calls from Weens. The information, which is of course classed as doxing, as we all know. The information that PayPal releases to eBay sellers includes your full name, home addresses, email address, eBay username, and possibly phone number. In other words, the exact kind of information you wouldn't want a screeching man-child to post in a public place when it's followed by hundreds of cannibalistic internet trolls. It's for one of the same reasons why you don't give money to people like Darkside Phil, because Darkside Phil absolutely wants to know who is making the donations and who is doing it legitimately. As if that's like part and parcel for the matter, which if you know anything at all about Phil like I do, you know that you don't do this either. Chris will piss your money away, as stated above. Chris and Bob have a long, hard history of irresponsibility, spending habits, which is the biggest reason why they've fallen into debt in the first place. Even if he does manage to ship something to you without any sort of hassle, or claim he won't spend your cash on toys, chances are still extremely high that Chris will immediately blow your money on Legos, action figures, video games, and or other stuff, then immediately go back to begging. Now, some may argue that the amount Chris actually spends on video games, for example, if Chris was actually going to do a Let's Play or do a Twitch channel, then maybe he could have used the money to actually, you know, generate income that way. But Chris, I don't think would even want to do that, even for the things he's actually pseudo-interested in. The timeline. Now, we have sort of like covered a large part of this before, because it goes into 26... I may as well just open these up in separate tabs to see, like, if it goes... Well, these only reference dates more than anything, so... I'll see what it's like for, like, 2019, because we covered, like, the majority of these things. Is that another fine collectible, and we've done these as well, and Chris, like, sells things and makes money. There's outright not too much to say about this, and... Oh, by the way, Chris angrily telling someone to shut up and just give him money... Chris, shut up, do not hate me, and help me of you can, please. Yes, shut up and give me your money, is what Chris is saying, and that's, to be honest, the most of it. Oh yeah, I forgot as well, that's right, is that Chris tries to sell Twilight Sparkle's secret shipfic folder cards by this point. And as for 2020, I don't really think like much actually happened outside of just being benefactors, and Chris just buys like Transformers toys. And no doubt if Chris got his stimulus check from Donald Trump in 2021, you gotta wonder as to how quickly that was spent as well. Because did Chris ever... I'm pretty sure Chris must have received a stimulus check at one point, because usually stimulus checks during the pandemic were recommended for families or households where their income was like less than about 11,000 a month or something like that, I think. In any case, the future. Prior to Chris's arrest, Bob claimed $900 of Chris's tugboat each month to pay the active mortgage on 14 Branch Lane Court. The seriousness of the Financhu crisis, combined with Chris's impulse spending, bear in mind the mortgage was at least $1/800,000 the last time I checked, combined with Chris's impulsive spending, may have led many followers of Chris to speculate on whether the passing of Bob will lead to financial ruin. Chris's future revenue, other than the monthly tugboat and fan support, and wherever the hell he is technically living, is to be very limited, with some of his followers admitting that Chris will never get any kind of loan or credit. Even if Chris were to reserve his stance and try and get a job, he never will. Nearly all potential employers would be unwilling to take on someone with little to no skills and over a decade of real-life and internet notoriety. Both the state of Virginia and the US federal government have programs intended to help the disabled secure independent living, most famously Section 8 housing. A number of followers have suggested that Chris should sign up for it, though these involve lengthy application processes and possibly several months on the waiting list. On the contrary, financial ruin may be a wet dream for A-loggers and weens, but it would be devastating for both Chris and many of his followers, because they may think that the honeymoon is over, for what that means. The 2014 house fire caused a number of followers to doubt whether Chris will be able to cope with sleeping rough with little more than his clothes and medallion, especially after being pampered with toys and video games for many years. Homelessness would also threaten the steady supply of fresh drama that continues to attract new fans. Incorrect, that's why Daniel Larson exists, but then again, don't think Daniel Larson is an example to go by, and from all walks of life, and leave them wondering what will happen to Chris and what will he do. During Chris's stay in jail, not only would he beg for people to donate to his inmate account, but also beg for people to help pay off Bob's mortgage and to have her relocated so he could move back in once he was released. However, there has been speculation that Chris had been placed in Section 8 housing upon release. Whether or not his tugboat was suspended, only for it to be, opened once again, or whether or not it was just accumulating while Chris was in the nick, the money cannot be garnished by the creditors, So as it stands, it seems that Chris may not be too worried about paying off his unsecured debt, as he has other more important things to deal with. I wonder what happens if we were to open this link. What counts as important? Oh wait, the post-jail sightings. Okay, that might make sense. As for Bob, her debt is secured debt. While she's still paying it off with her own tugboat, considering she's been spotted at 14 Branch Lane Court as recent as August 2023, it's very likely the house will be foreclosed once she kicks the bucket. And, well, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. That's really that's pretty much the Financhu crisis. Chris's spending habits slowly but surely catching up with him, and whether Chris wanted to admit to it or not, there was everything he could have done to stop it, but instead Chris decided to avert all reality at this point, not in part due to the idea guy stuff, but also for the fact that Chris doesn't see the value in situations like these and the things that actually matter. And I've said this before, ladies and gentlemen, but this is the sort of thing that happens to people who decide they think that they can just live on easy and not have to work for anything they get. And we'll have plenty more people in the future, if they pick up this way of life, will result in more things like this.
Man is really due tomorrow!
So, I would say almost immediately, like, that's like the end of it, but since it's like only 10 past 11 at night and I've been here for like nearly an hour and a half, I suppose I can kill maybe another 30 minutes because I feel like this a short story I want to share with you guys. It's relatively short. I'll actually try and I'll bigger the camera just so you guys get like a better view. So where exactly did I... Oh, here it is. So let me just bigger the camera a little bit. I'll even put it in the center here. So there we are. That's the center image. Okay, so for those who don't know, once I completed my temporary position with the Royal Mail was over, it ended specifically the 20th of December 2019, and ironically, it was the 20th, by the way, just because I always remember that date, because I even wrote in like half-attempted attempts at actually writing an autobiography about my experiences with the pandemic. I remember specifically writing down this was technically the end of part 1. Part 1 was basically my graduation day from university from the 4th of July that year all the way up to the 20th of December. And I remember writing down very specifically at the end of like part 1 was, and at this moment, halfway across the world, the trouble began. Because there is a lot of people speculate that the actual pandemic began round about this period in Wuhan, but you don't need to know that. The only other things of noting worth ladies and gentlemen, is that once like Christmas was like sort of just done, and it was like I was like looking for work basically at once 2020 began, because I was just enjoying Christmas and I had all my bills coming up, because I usually pay like a considerable amount of like my own bills, like my Adobe license, so that I could continue making videos by the 11th. So I had all of that stuff sorted out anyway. That was just part and parcel about what I was going to do, because again, I just know fine well better off that these things have got to be paid for, and that's how it is. But anyway, I remember when I got back from the job centre in Morpeth, I spent basically like a whole day out, more or less, looking for work and just trying to talk to my work coach about the sorts of things that were going on and what I felt like it was worth disclosing. I remember as soon as I got back home, it was like 6 o'clock at night, and there were reports coming that some mysterious virus was spreading all across eastern China. And I remember just like sort of looking at it and thought to myself, oh, that doesn't sound good. And then pretty much a month later, it was spreading again. And by I think it was the 17th of February by this point, I was virtually just making YouTube videos just to spread about so that I could actually get, well, earn monetization at this point. And during my first real attempt at like making YouTube, I'd been doing this for like 2 years at that point anyway. But important things to note is that I remember I went to a Steel Panther concert in Newcastle, and they made some jokes, the guys on Steel Panther, about COVID, and one of them survived COVID by getting so drunk that he literally managed to piss it all away on the audience. I love Steel Panther. They're just that sort of like degeneracy that is a little bit more. We need a little bit more of that sort of thing. Just a bunch of just fun guys just saying dumb shit because it's just kind of funny in many ways. And then we got the news, an emergency broadcast from Boris Johnson, then Prime Minister, about, you must stay at home. And I remember when March came around and I went once again. Well, I didn't technically go to the job centre in Morpeth. I went to a different building not too far away because the job centre itself, well, this is when everything was on lockdown, so even I must have been like one of the last people to actually like meet with people face to face before we all did things over Teams, through phone calls and all the rest of it. And I remember the work coach that that just recently assigned me told me on no uncertain terms that for however long this pandemic goes on for, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to find work in terms of businesses that would have to stay open because of what's happening with the pandemic. And there will come a day, ladies and gentlemen, where I actually release my work in terms of my own experience with the pandemic, because the things to note in this is the fact that I was applying for like at least 3 different jobs every single day, because it really was, even towards the end of March, it really was becoming a problem with the fact that, hang on a second, like, I thought I would just be able to go from like one job, even temporarily, just straight to the other. I took it for granted that actually, due to what was an unprecedented event worldwide, it was becoming so difficult to actually find work, and I had to just keep trying, and I grabbed hold of anything I could get, including, but not limited to, one of those schemes in which people stand about on the streets and try to encourage people to swap to energy suppliers and stuff like that. I remember I went to one agency like a week after my 22nd birthday, and the CEO of the company, she was like this half Italian, half Scottish firehouse who was exactly 51 weeks older than me, really took a shine to me because I was like really erudite, and also because she was like really attractive anyway. And basically, when it was all said and done, that was the last I ever heard of that place, because whether or not these are like one of those pyramid scheme places in which nobody really gets paid, and those are sorts of things that you don't really want to fall into, those sorts of traps. Anyway, so that was like in like February 6th, I think it was, when that happened in 2020. But anyway, months passed and I tried everything, to like, from writing to putting videos out daily. I tried to do as much as I could, all while basically not really setting foot outside my village for like several like months past because of the pandemic. And I even remember when Victory Day came around and I was making videos about Chris even back then, and we all said hello to we all gathered out just out on my street, and we all like said hello to each other, and we like I caught up with my my neighbor who literally just lives on the other side of the street, a guy I have not seen for like years, well, spoken about, but that sort of thing, because this guy, remember, he was in the RAF, and he knew guys from my school who were also not only in the RAF but were also married at the young age of just 23, who were working in the US as flying officers and corporals at this point. I don't remember if one of my friends from school was a corporal at 23. It would have been extraordinarily young to be a corporal, but I do know he was married at least 22, and, well, all the power to him. And again, I knew this lad really, really well, and even my neighbor across the street. I'm not sure if he's like just in a long-term relationship. I don't know if he's married at this point because we're both the same age. You know, we grew up on the same street, and we're both 26 at this point, and just it's interesting. I just think it's like how things pad out for different people, all within like the same sort of community. Anyway, so all that went by, and then on the Monday, the 21st or the 22nd of July is when the luck changed, and they asked me, there's a cleaning job going at Wallsend Job Centre. I think it was called Wallsend Job Centre then, but basically that was that, and they said literally go there tomorrow morning at 8:30 and you'll get the job immediately. And I did, and guess what? I stayed there because the good thing about the job centre at Wallsend is that it was at the time, because I wasn't driving by this point because I didn't have I didn't have a driver's license. The job centre was right outside the metro station, which meant that it was roughly about like a 40-minute journey back and forth, because the way you would have to go from where I would have to go from Callerton Parkway all the way to Monument, and then have to get onto a different platform just to get a different metro all the way to Wallsend on the same ticket, because this is when weekly passes were less than £17 on the metro. I don't know how much it is now, but goodness me, things have changed very quickly, and I've very rarely used the metro ever since. But anyway, I was basically I was COVID-19 sanitation commissioner, which meant that even though the hours were here's the thing, I need to really bring this up, is that I didn't, after about the first 3 days, and after sort of just casually interacting with people back and forth who were working in there, I kind of almost thought that, was this really worth it? To like, minimum wage, yes, but 40 hours, again, the hours wasn't really too bad, but basically for the first like 2.5 weeks, I was basically working my socks off. I very rarely sat down because, well, I saw my job as just being, you know what, after I had like the first like meeting between my manager and the people who ran the job centre itself, after all that, I set to work very, very hurriedly, and yeah, that's kind of like just how things padded out. And well, and what happened was that the manager I worked for, she was a very, very nice woman, very, very patient, very, very understanding, and I think she was just glad that I was just open and honest and frank about sometimes when, here's the thing, there weren't really any issues that were coming up and stuff like that, because it's just one of those things. But I remember the day, it was like late August, and I remember receiving a call from her, and she asked me, Jim, would you be more than willing to work 50 hours a week? So you would be working from 9 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. Would you be willing to do that? I'm telling you now, it took me all of 2 seconds to say yes, because by that point I realized that, you know what, it means like 80 extra pound, like it was like £76 extra a week, because I was only 22 at the time, and I was still in that bracket where minimum wage was like, it didn't go up until I was at least 25. So yeah, that was the thing, is that it meant more money, and there weren't really any hardships really whatsoever with doing 50 hours a week, because I was earning money, and I got paid like £558 a week, which was a lot more than I was getting paid before, and the fact that I was getting paid very regularly at every Friday meant that it wasn't too bad, and I was starting to put money aside and actually just get on with it a little bit. And then, like, roughly about the middle of November is when they gave me a call again saying that, by the way, we're going to be opening the place on Saturdays, so if you're willing to do another 8 hours, come down. And again, it took me even less time to say yes to that. So before you know what was happening, towards the end of 2020, I went from basically 12 months before coming to an end of a temporary position to being unemployed, to working 58 hours a week. And it meant that when January came around, for the very first time in my life, I got earned just enough to actually be paid monthly. And by the way, during January of 2021, I actually managed to get my old job with delivering newspapers back as well. And guess what? I did that all the way up until the end of 2022, when the post office decided they were going to be suspending all people from delivering papers. So I earned an extra 60 quid a week just in delivering papers, which would have been quite good to actually subsidize, paying tax and paying national insurance. So it balanced itself out really well. So the things I want people to sort of like take away from all of this is the fact that the luck does change, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't really believe in luck, to be honest. I believe that if you are actually going to put in the effort, and as long as you're more than willing to say yes and accept these sorts of things, and guess what? By this point, I was on basically very, very good terms with the people I worked with, and I was great friends with a lot of them for the 35 months, just short of 3 years while I was there. And, well, I got, by the time my job came to an end, because the pandemic was basically over in the summer of 2023, I went from that job straight to the next one. Like, there wasn't even a day, I didn't even have a day off. Well, between jobs, I should say. I had I went 6 whole months from when I started my gig in Wallsend all the way to the week leading up to my 23rd birthday. I went 6 months without having a day off. Wasn't on the sick or anything like that. It was just as simple as that. In fact, I can actually say that during my entire time in Wallsend, I was only off on the sick once. Just once. I was never late, and they were quite sad to see me go. But you know what? That's just how it was. And, well, you gain some very valuable life lessons through being in work. You know that it's something that you can't avoid. And you know what? I was like, I don't want to say I was fully grown up by that point, because I feel like I still had a bit of that young at heart childish whimsy about me, like that it's sort of been following me through like a number of years anyway. But again, when I started my gig in Wallsend, I couldn't drive. It was during the middle of a pandemic. It was during the beginnings of a pandemic, because if anybody remembers, like when 2021 began is when things got like really, really bad. I was working a 65 day week. My only day off was Sunday, and I still, I went to mass, I went to church, I did all the things. I still made videos. I still went to like the gym to like recline, and I don't want to like boast or anything like that, but I feel like I feel like I'm in a much better position through work. And the thing I want to subsidize this when talking about Chris is that there is no substitute for hard work. And you know what? There is value in all work that you can do. And Chris not only doesn't see the value in work, but he wholeheartedly protests against it. But all the time still screams that the mortgage payment is due tomorrow. Which, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, it's not just the unoriginality, the scandals, the bad reputation that Chris holds. It's everything that those are just things that we know of. Subjectively, there are things that we know fine well Chris is, like a lecherous pervert. And again, these are a matter of opinions, but again, these sorts of things cloud people's judgment, and also tries to reinforce how people should, act in the real world, knowing through what they see, is that Chris is lazy, he is irresponsible, he is negligent, dangerous, and thinks that he only has to pay attention some of the times. It would probably be within Chris's interest to literally not have to try as hard as he ever did ever before, and still expects the whole world to dance to his tune. Well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. And there was never a point where, even when I was unemployed, ladies and gentlemen, I was still trying to put stuff out there. I was still trying to gain a reputation through my work through YouTube, as far back as 2020. I still put myself out there. I was still willing to do it, and you know what? I'm still doing it to this day. But the difference is that with the benefit of hindsight, and my older videos are still out there, is that things have changed, but Chris's attitude is almost cemented in history, because you could say same shit, different day, but again, the fact is that, again, even 4 years, my perspective has changed, and I know that, like, 4 years have passed, and during that time, there's at least one lesson I've certainly learned during this. It's the fact that you can absolutely get what you want in this world if you're willing to put in the work, and you sort of know exactly how to do it through learning about how other people have got to where they are through their own attitudes and academics and foresight and knowledge and, work ethics. Chris does not represent any of those things, not even talent. And I think we all can agree and testify, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of talking about Chris, is not necessarily the end about Chris and his business acolytes and everything in between, but it's the fact that, well, how exactly can you see this ending? Not brilliantly. I'm not too sure if Chris could ever end up homeless, but maybe Chris will go back to prison. Who knows? But outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you enjoyed this little talk I wanted to give as well. It's very unlike me to do these sorts of things, because I don't really want to bring myself into any of this, but it's a good reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that even for you people watching at home, it's a good reminder as well that actually you can be motivated through the most unlikely ways to actually do well in life. And again, I run my own businesses. I still go to work. I still, look after my aging parents. I'm able to cook and clean and look after myself. I'm able to pay my bills on time. I'm able to, service my car and make sure everything is kept up to date. And you know what? It's simply put, you should be responsible enough to care about what you're doing. Chris is too lazy to even do that. So take care, and bye-bye for now.